I have prepared more than 100 shocking historical photos. Write in the comments, which photo did you like the most? Louisiana killer Eusebio Vidrine poses for his final photograph moments before his hanging in Ville Platte on August 8, 1924. Convicted of murdering Robert Leo Wiggins, he confessed to 4 more killings. It was Evangeline Parrish's only legal execution. Japanese-American Tommy Kono began lifting weights while incarcerated at Tule Lake during World War II, where the desert air eased his severe asthma. Shown here after his 4th Mr. Universe title in 1961, he won 2 Olympic golds, 1 silver, set 26 world records, and became the IWF's Lifter of the Century. German U-boat U-185 sinks on August 24, 1943, after an Avenger from USS Core struck it with depth charges in the mid-Atlantic. USS Barker recovered 36 men, 9 from the previously lost U-604, but 4 later died. 43 men were killed in total. Born in Douglas, Ontario, Mary Krasinski, 1890 to 1957, became a North American sideshow performer despite a severe skeletal disorder. She was never formally diagnosed, so later claims that she had osteogenesis imperfecta remain unconfirmed. Children bathed beside Berlin's war-shattered Reichstag in 1945 amid the destruction left by the final battle for the city. Soviet photographer Boris Pushkin captured the scene during the first year of Allied occupation. Circus clown and press agent George Harmon climbs a ladder to feed the giraffes John and Mary. Born with dwarfism, he worked with Ringling Brothers, Hagenbeck Wallace, and Sells Floto, and cared for their animals. A young girl rests atop bundled belongings during Barcelona's evacuation in January 1939 as Francoist forces advanced through Catalonia. Robert Capa captured the civilian exodus days before Barcelona fell on January 26 near the Spanish Civil War's end. On July 25, 2000, Air France Flight 459 struck runway debris during takeoff, rupturing a fuel tank and igniting a catastrophic fire. The Concorde crashed into a hotel in Gonesse, killing all 109 aboard and 4 on the ground, the aircraft type's only fatal accident. B-24. Liberators fly over the French coast during the Second World War. These heavy bombers carried up to 8,000 pounds of bombs and flew missions deep into Nazi-occupied Europe. Trapeze star Mara Campos transformed circus acts with rare elegance and elite athletic skill. In the 1950s, she built her extraordinary grip strength by curling a heavily loaded bar while seated. Brand new 1949 Fords ride a packed river barge down the Mississippi. This floating parking lot delivered hundreds of cars to dealers without adding a single mile to their odometers. In 1982, a fire destroyed the diesel power plant at Antarctica's Vostok Station, leaving 20 scientists without heat. They survived 227 days of polar winter using improvised oil stoves at one of the coldest places on Earth. This is Huron, a 250 kiloton thermonuclear explosion at Eniwetok Atoll. Detonated from a barge at 6:12 in the morning on July 22, 1956. It was nearly 17 times more powerful than Hiroshima. Dr. James Barry performed Africa's first recorded successful cesarean section by a European, saving both mother and baby. After Barry died in 1865, an examination revealed that the famous British military surgeon had been born female. On July 22, 1958, the Juniper nuclear test exploded with 65 kilotons of force at Bikini Atoll. This Air Force plane flew toward the radioactive cloud to collect samples for secret analysis. In 1982, Maya rebels fought Guatemala's army during the bloodiest year of the Civil War. Indigenous villages faced massacres as the military hunted anyone suspected of supporting the guerrillas. In September 1887, the Yellow River burst through its dikes and flooded thousands of villages. Around 900,000 people died, while nearly 2 million were left homeless. At Pope Pius XII's funeral in October 1958, a failed embalming experiment made his body swell and decay rapidly. The stench overwhelmed guards, and built-up gases reportedly caused the corpse to rupture. In 1990, Buster Douglas entered the ring as a 42-1 underdog just 23 days after his mother died. He knocked out Mike Tyson and handed the undefeated champion his first professional loss. Jose Salvador Alvarenga survived 438 days adrift at sea, hiding from the sun beneath an overturned icebox. His dead companion's family later sued him for $1 million, alleging that he had eaten the body. On July 26, 1956, Harry Trask photographed the Andrea Doria moments before it vanished beneath the Atlantic. The luxury liner sank after colliding with the Stockholm in thick fog, killing 51 people. Georgios Fotis settled in Ethiopia in 1850 and rose to commander of the guard. He was reportedly the only European who fought for Ethiopia against Italy at Adwa in 1896. In 1957, a father and son cried as relatives left Spain by boat for Buenos Aires. Economic hardship forced many families to seek work and a better life in Argentina. In 1940, this bride stepped out of her bomb-damaged home and headed to her wedding. Even a German air raid could not stop the ceremony. In Poland in 1957, a farmer uncovered an old boundary stone buried during forced collectivization. Peasants had secretly preserved it, hoping their stolen land would one day be returned. Gerald Joe Locke, a British SAS sniper, holds an L-42A1 rifle during Oman's Dhofar Rebellion around 1972. British Special Forces secretly helped defeat communist rebels in this brutal desert war. On February 22, 1928, Frank Lockhart's Black Hawk blew a tire near 200 miles per hour at Daytona Beach. The car crashed into the ocean, killing the 25-year-old racing legend. On July 26, 1956, Nasser seized the Suez Canal, triggering an invasion by Britain, France, and Israel. American financial pressure forced them to retreat, exposing Britain's collapse as an independent superpower. On April 30, 1967, a Viet Cong landmine ripped through this bus near Trang Bang in South Vietnam. One person was killed and 20 others were injured in the blast. Dutch potato diggers eat lunch in a field near Groningen in 1940. Their mud-blackened hands reveal the brutal work behind every harvested potato. In 1973, 14-year-old Sabina Chibichi stunned Kenya by winning her first race barefoot and wearing a green petticoat. 1 year later, she became Kenya's first female Commonwealth athletics medalist. Between 1998 and 2007, several disappearances along India's Kali River were blamed on a giant catfish called the gunch. The suspected predator was never caught, but estimates placed it at 7 feet long and over 200 pounds. Edward S. Willis lost both legs in a sawmill accident, but became an acrobat and sideshow performer. Abandoned at a boarding house at 5, he never attended school, yet later built a peaceful life around fishing and swimming. Screen Actors Guild members eat lunch in oversized prosthetic heads around 1994. The surreal masks were part of their work, turning an ordinary meal break into a bizarre behind-the-scenes scene. In 1989, an explosion inside USS Iowa's second gun turret killed 47 sailors. The Navy blamed dead sailor Clayton Hartwig, but later tests showed that the gunpowder could have exploded accidentally during loading. This is Eilif Bråten in Bø, Norway, around 1895. He traveled between villages repairing cups and containers, while also earning money as a cobbler and tinsmith. American paratroopers descend near Wessel, Germany, during Operation Varsity on March 24, 1945. Robert Capa captured the largest airborne assault conducted in a single day. Warsaw in 1944, after German forces crushed the Warsaw Uprising. Hitler ordered the city destroyed, leaving about 85% of Warsaw in ruins. In 1915, Frank Hurley photographed beneath the frozen bow of Shackleton's Endurance in Antarctica. After the ship was crushed, he saved 120 glass negatives and smashed about 400 others on Shackleton's orders. Japanese civilians gather among shattered homes after the surrender in 1945. The Jungleers reached Japan after fighting from New Guinea to the Philippines, then became occupation troops instead of launching the feared invasion. In 1947, Stalingrad's Dancing Children Fountain still stood beside buildings shattered during one of history's deadliest battles. The original fountain was removed just 4 years later. Russia's Obskaya to Bovanenkovo Railway crosses the frozen Yamal Peninsula, making it the world's northernmost railway. Its only settlement is Obskoy, a remote village of about 7,500 people. In 1897, these 3 royal guards served the King of Siam, now Thailand. They carried enormous blunderbusses, short-range firearms built for devastating close combat. Near Estonia's Amari Air Base, Soviet fighter pilots were buried beneath aircraft tail fins. Each grave was reportedly marked with a fin from the type of jet that pilot flew. Etta Lake was a British sideshow performer whose career lasted from 1886 to 1894. Ehlers-Danlos syndrome gave her unusually elastic skin and flexible joints, yet admirers also praised her charm. On July 14, 1943, Luftwaffe ace Egon Meyer inspected a .50 caliber gun inside an American bomber he had shot down. The wrecked aircraft was a B-17 Flying Fortress. Dolly was a rare 2-headed cow born in 1936 with craniofacial duplication. She survived for 17 years, an extraordinary lifespan for such a severe condition. This Maori woman wears moko kawai, a sacred chin tattoo marking identity, ancestry, and status. By the early 1900s, colonial pressure had nearly erased this ancient tradition. In 1986, Pepa Flores made her final public appearance after revealing the abuse she suffered as a child star. She abandoned fame, left the film industry, and later lived quietly near her family pizzeria in Malaga. This is Sam, a 7-pound rhesus monkey, moments before his flight on December 4, 1959. He reached 55 miles above Earth in a Mercury capsule and returned alive. In 1983, 10-year-old Joanne Peterson called her mother from a payphone after being locked outside. Her mother arrived 15 minutes later, but Joanne and the unknown man who answered the phone had vanished. In 1926, 19-year-old Gertrude Ederle became the first woman to swim the English Channel. Coated in lard, olive oil, and lanolin against the cold, she beat the men's record by nearly 2 hours. In 1958, police arrested Richard and Mildred Loving in their bedroom because their interracial marriage was illegal in Virginia. 9 years later, their Supreme Court victory ended such marriage bans across America. In 1905, archaeologists found the nearly intact tomb of Yuya and Thuya in the Valley of the Kings. Its lavish treasures made it Egypt's richest discovery before Tutankhamun's tomb. After a bombing raid in London in 1940, a shopkeeper wrote business as usual on his shattered store. The message showed customers that even the Blitz would not stop him. In 1938, some Indonesian communities filed their teeth as a rite of adulthood. The painful process marked beauty, status, and belonging without modern anesthesia. Irish explorer Tom Crean holds newborn sled dog puppies during Shackleton's Endurance expedition. Their ship was later crushed by Antarctic ice, forcing the crew into an incredible fight for survival. In the 1980s, Icelandic strongman John Paul Sigmarsson deadlifted 551 pounds with one hand. He raised his free arm and flexed while holding 250 kilograms. On July 25, 1942, 7,000 Warsaw Jews were forced onto trains bound for Treblinka. Nazi officers raised daily deportation quotas, while Jewish police were ordered to seize people from the ghetto. Roma and Vittorio Veneto sailed together in December 1942, photographed from Littorio. 9 months later, a German guided bomb sank Roma, killing nearly 1,400 men. In the 1960s, Norman Borlaug created disease-resistant wheat that produced far more grain. His work helped prevent mass famine and later earned him the Nobel Peace Prize. Protesters greeted the first Tour de Trump in New York in 1989, mocking its billionaire sponsor. Their signs attacked Donald Trump's wealth and warned of the political anger already surrounding his name. In 1932, Gary Cooper returned from an African hunting trip with a baby chimpanzee named Toluca. The unusual animal quickly became a Hollywood sensation. After Hurricane Katrina, 20-year-old Jabbar Gibson took an abandoned school bus and rescued 70 stranded survivors. He drove 13 hours to Houston, becoming the first evacuation bus to reach the Astrodome. In the 1980s, Afghan Mujahideen posed on a destroyed Soviet My-8 helicopter in Kunar province. Portable missiles made low-flying Soviet aircraft increasingly vulnerable during the war. Johnny Cash poses with Vivian Liberto and their 4 daughters in 1961. Years later, Vivian was denied communion after their divorce until Cash admitted to the church that his behavior had destroyed the marriage. A state militiaman confronts a black veteran during the Chicago race riot on July 27, 1919. The violence lasted 1 week, killing 38 people and injuring more than 500. 14-year-old Linda Morgan was torn from her bed when the Stockholm crashed into the Andrea Doria in 1956. The impact carried her across the gap between the ships and left her alive inside the Stockholm's shattered bow. In the late 1800s, experimenters trained zebras and crossed them with horses, hoping to create disease-resistant workers. Zebras could pull carriages, but their aggression, panic, and powerful bite made domestication impractical. In 1966, this nuclear bomb vanished into the sea after 2 United States planes collided over Spain. 80 days later, crews recovered it from 869 meters deep, badly crushed but without a radiation leak. In July 1967, stern photographer Fred Ehart flew below radar over the Greek island of Giaros. His secret photographs exposed a hidden prison where the military junta held thousands of political prisoners. Australian troops celebrate after capturing Posieras on July 23, 1916. Some wear German helmets taken from the enemy after one of the bloodiest battles Australians faced in the First World War. Chet Baker at 24, beside John Claridge's haunting portrait of him at 57. Decades of heroin addiction, prison, and lost teeth transformed the jazz icon, but Claridge said his trumpet still carried astonishing emotion. On July 24, 1945, American aircraft attacked Icy, a battleship rebuilt to carry planes. Bombs tore through the ship at Cure, and 4 days later, another attack sank her in shallow water. On July 28, 1944, a 4th Armored Division patrol crossed the ruins of Coutances. The city was shattered, but its 800-year-old cathedral survived. In 1986, Sebastião Salgado photographed Serra Pelada, where 50,000 miners dug for gold by hand. They carried sacks weighing up to 100 kilograms up steep, muddy slopes. Paratroopers of the 503rd Regimental Combat Team wait aboard a transport plane bound for Corregidor on February 17, 1945. Their mission was to seize the heavily fortified island from Japanese forces. On June 5, 1996, Princess Diana visited a badly injured man at Cook County Hospital in Chicago. She stood beside his bed as machines and intravenous lines kept him alive. Opened in 1999, Turkey's Edir Genocide Memorial presents a disputed reversal of history. Its museum claims Armenians committed genocide against Turks, directly opposing the widely recognized Armenian genocide. Rudolf Heinz Ruffer points to the tank symbols on his Henschel HS-129 after destroying about 80 Soviet tanks. The Knight's Cross holder flew roughly 300 combat missions before being killed on July 16, 1944. In 1882, Grand Duchess Olga Alexandrovna's birth was marked by a 101-gun salute across Russia. 66 years later, Tsar Alexander III's youngest daughter entered Canada as a farm worker and sold her own paintings. In 1883, walkers explored the newly opened Brooklyn Bridge, the first major suspension bridge built with steel wire. Pedestrians paid 1 cent to cross it. The crushed bow of the Stockholm survived the collision that sank the Andrea Doria in 1956. Despite the damage, Stockholm rescued more than 500 passengers and crew from the doomed liner. Maori chief Tomika Temutu was photographed between 1860 and 1879. His intricate facial moco recorded his rank, ancestry, and identity, making his face a living signature. In 2004, Marcus Bleasdale photographed a child working in a gold mine in Watsa, Congo. The image exposed how the fight for mineral wealth fueled armed violence and brutal labor. On July 23, 1944, a soldier of the 29th Infantry Division advances through St. Lo. He passes a dead German beside St. George Church, heavily damaged during the battle. In 1959, William Castle used Emergo, a glowing skeleton that flew over audiences during House on Haunted Hill. Teenagers often attacked it with popcorn, turning the horror stunt into chaos. Chol Soo Lee spent 10 years in prison for a murder conviction shaped by racial bias. A Pan-Asian American movement helped clear his name, and he was released in 1983. Adolf Hitler met a Chinese delegation at the Berghof on June 13, 1937. At the time, Germany was training Chinese troops, shortly before choosing Japan as its main Asian ally. This South Vietnamese M41 tank was destroyed in Quang Tri during the brutal Easter Offensive of 1972. The city changed hands twice and was almost completely erased by months of fighting. In 1991, Kuwaiti motorists celebrated liberation from Iraqi occupation near the iconic Kuwait Towers. Their banner reads, "Congratulations on the liberation of Kuwait." Lenin wore this wig to hide his identity after the failed uprising of 1917. Using the alias Konstantin Ivanov, he secretly escaped to Finland. In 1919, armed bandits stopped Vladimir Lenin's car and robbed him, never realizing he was the Soviet leader. Lenin had only one guard, but the gang was later captured and shot. This Soviet footage shows Tsar Bomba, the most powerful nuclear weapon ever detonated. Its 50-megaton blast created a mushroom cloud about 67 kilometers high and shattered windows hundreds of kilometers away. On August 15, 1961, 19-year-old East German guard Konrad Schumann jumped over barbed wire into West Berlin. Photographer Peter Liebing captured the escape, creating one of the Cold War's most famous images. In 1978, Australian pilot Frederick Valentich reported a mysterious object circling above his plane. Minutes later, metallic sounds ended his transmission, and neither he nor the aircraft was ever found. In 1940, German teenagers examined a Messerschmitt 109 at an arms exhibition. The sign beneath the propeller says, "Photography is forbidden," yet this photograph survived. Canal Street in 1981 was packed with discount shops, traffic, and New York's punk crowd. Behind them stood Pearl Paint, the legendary art store whose giant red sign became a downtown landmark. In May 1945, a vast crowd packed Zagreb to celebrate the city's liberation by Yugoslav partisans. The victory ended 4 years of brutal fascist Ustasha rule in Croatia. These are the ruins of Baghdad's Amaria shelter, struck by 2 American bombs on 13 February 1991. More than 400 civilians were killed, many of them women and children. In Vichy, France, Saint-Cyr cadets kneel as officers remain standing during a ceremony on August 26, 1941. Their class was named after Marshal Pétain, the regime's authoritarian leader and Nazi collaborator. In London in 1925, a street vendor sold fresh bread from a horse-drawn handcart. The Empire Flour sign promoted British grain and a 4-pound loaf for 6 pence. In 1943, General Douglas MacArthur met 5 Native American soldiers serving together in the South Pacific. They came from the Pima, Pawnee, Chitimacha, and Navajo nations. German and Soviet officers salute the Nazi flag in occupied Brest in September 1939. Days earlier, their armies had invaded Poland from opposite sides. Hugh, February 23, 1968. An M50 Ontos passes a medic treating a wounded Marine. Its 6 recoilless rifles made this tiny tank destroyer devastating in street combat. An Italian Royal Army soldier stands beside a captured French 25mm Hotchkiss anti-tank gun in June 1940. Small but deadly, this weapon could pierce most early war tanks at close range. In February 1937, this mysterious local character was photographed in snowy McLeansboro, Illinois. His towering hat, double-lens glasses, and white mustache made him impossible to ignore. British Centurion Mark III tanks entered Port Said during the Suez Crisis in 1956. Britain and France seized the city, but intense international pressure forced them to withdraw. American soldiers pose with captured Japanese flags and weapons after taking a Pacific island during World War II. The man in the center of the back row is the photographer's grandfather. Japanese soldiers scale the Great Wall during the Battle of Nankou in 1937. After fierce resistance, Japan seized the mountain passes, protecting the route toward northern China. Estelle Peck Ishigo was one of the few white Americans imprisoned in Japanese incarceration camps after voluntarily joining her husband, Arthur. Her story later inspired Days of Waiting, an Academy Award-winning documentary. A Northrop Black Widow tows a Mustang to 28,000 feet over Muroc Dry Lake. After release, the Mustang glided powerless for 20 minutes, while researchers measured its drag at different speeds. 2 women laughed together in a small rowboat in Maine during the 1890s. Captured on a glass negative, this rare candid moment reveals a playful side of Victorian life rarely seen in formal portraits. In 1995, comedy star Chris Farley joined House Speaker Newt Gingrich inside the United States Capitol. Their unlikely meeting put one of television's wildest performers beside one of Washington's most powerful politicians. Marie Curie was the only woman in this legendary photograph from the 1927 Solvay Conference. She remains the only person to win Nobel Prizes in 2 different sciences, physics and chemistry. Yuri Knorozov sits on a cart during an expedition in northern Uzbekistan in 1946. Just 6 years later, he revealed the key to reading ancient Maya writing. In late April 1942, a Savoia Marchetti 79 flies over a sinking British merchant ship in the Mediterranean. The Sparviero became Italy's deadliest torpedo bomber. In early 20th century Bukhara, barbers cut hair and shaved customers in open-front street shops. This rare photograph also captures the city's traditional robes, embroidered belts, and turbans. After Italy switched sides, German troops forced captured Italian soldiers to build defenses on Monte Trocchio in October 1943. The position guarded the approach to Monte Cassino, where one of the war's bloodiest battles soon erupted. France, 1944. Ground crews load 20mm cannon belts for Dangerous Dan, a P-61 Black Widow. Its 4 belly-mounted cannons could fire 16 rounds every second. Benjamin Bowden demonstrates his futuristic classic bicycle in London in 1946. Its fiberglass frame was decades ahead of its time, but the radical design failed commercially. Before automatic pin setters, workers manually reset every bowling pin and returned each ball. This rare photo shows a pin setter working inside a Chicago bowling lane in 1941. Bob Hoover escaped a German prison camp by stealing an enemy plane. He later became a legendary test pilot and stunned crowds with his bright yellow P-51 Mustang. One Wonderland murder victim is removed from the Los Angeles crime scene in 1981. 4 people were killed, but despite links to porn star John Holmes and nightclub owner Eddie Nash, the case remains officially unsolved. 9 sailors were rescued after the 4-masted schooner G.A. Kohler washed ashore in North Carolina during a 1933 hurricane. It remained stranded until World War II, when it was burned to recover scrap metal. In the early 1900s, a young woman trained with a makeshift punching bag in a brick courtyard. The glass negative captured female boxing decades before women entered the Olympic ring. In May 1981, Catholic schoolchildren in Belfast gathered around a British soldier on patrol. The friendly scene unfolded during the Troubles, when armed troops were a daily sight in Northern Ireland. In 1940, a torpedo from HMS Clyde blasted a huge hole in the German battleship Gneisenau. The damage forced the feared warship into a Kiel shipyard for months of repairs. In 1978, a reporter investigating Mary Dufour's death found evidence that she was actually Anna Muriel Sizer. Her brother rejected the discovery because it meant admitting his family had abandoned her in insane asylums for 50 years. President Franjo Tudjman and General Ante Gotovina stand near Knin during Operation Storm in August 1995. The offensive recaptured the Serb-held city in 4 days and triggered a mass exodus of Croatian Serbs. Holocaust survivor Joseph Gutman embraces his liberator and adoptive father, Master Sergeant William Best, on December 24, 1948. Their emotional reunion came 3 years after the Holocaust ended. In 1911, King George V killed 39 tigers, 18 rhinoceroses, and 4 bears during a 10-day hunt in Nepal. This photo shows the royal hunting party posing behind dead tigers. In 1889, German and American warships faced off in Samoa, ready for battle. Before either side fired, a cyclone wrecked 6 ships and killed more than 140 people. United States riflemen moved through dense jungle in Vietnam in 1967. One soldier carries linked ammunition for a machine gun, while the other advances with an early M16 rifle. In 1965, Atlanta Bank Secretary Mary Shotwell Little vanished after dinner at a mall. 18 months later, her replacement, Diane Shields, was found murdered in her car trunk, fueling suspicions that the cases were connected. In 1976, Trenny Lynn Gibson walked ahead of her classmates in the Great Smoky Mountains and vanished. Police suspected she ran away after rumors spread that she was dating a black classmate. Richard Nixon gives his famous victory sign as he leaves the White House on August 9, 1974. Minutes later, Gerald Ford became president, ending the Watergate scandal that destroyed Nixon's presidency. Marilyn Monroe poses beside Cary Grant at Ray Anthony's party on August 3, 1952. The celebration featured Mickey Rooney on drums and was captured in rare Kodachrome color. On February 16, 1945, American warships began pounding Iwo Jima before the Marine landing. Hidden in tunnels, nearly 21,000 Japanese defenders survived the attack. In 1970, Dark Shadows star Jonathan Frid crowned Christine Dominiecki New Jersey's Miss American Vampire. The bizarre pageant promoted House of Dark Shadows, and her prize was a role in the television series. In 1919, German submarine U-118 broke free while being towed for scrap and washed onto Hastings Beach. Thousands explored the wreck, but 2 Coast Guards later died after toxic gas leaked from its batteries. Charles Gance was only 18 inches tall, yet he managed his own traveling show for more than 24 years. Before performing, he traded livestock in Iowa and later spent his winters in California. An Omaha police officer holds Herbert Cochran in a headlock during his mugshot. Cochran was arrested for burglary on November 24, 1899. In the 1990s, AK-47 designer Mikhail Kalashnikov met Colonel Gaddafi on a beach in Tripoli. Kalashnikov even wore a tiny AK-47 tie pin. British troops feed Italian prisoners of war in Mandatory Palestine on December 21, 1940. Many were captured during Britain's rapid desert offensive against Italy. Soviet IS-2 heavy tanks rolled near the Brandenburg Gate after Berlin fell in May 1945. Their powerful 122mm guns had helped smash German defenses during the final assault. In the early 1900s, box beds gave families privacy inside crowded one-room homes. Their enclosed wooden walls trapped body heat, making them especially valuable during freezing winters. In the 1960s, Americans could order a young squirrel monkey by mail for $18.95. The deal included a cage, leash, collar, toy, and live delivery. This experimental firefighting suit used a hose-fed helmet to spray the wearer from every direction. The bulky design reduced visibility and movement, so it never became standard equipment. Daphne Sheldrick cares for a young elephant in Kenya in 1960. She later created a life-saving milk formula for orphaned elephants and founded her Wildlife Trust in 1977. In 1940, Thompson and Reed tested this bizarre torpedo boat in Michigan. Its 360 horsepower engine turned the giant wheel, designed to reach 30 miles per hour. This 34-year-old exile walked 43 kilometers through minus 37-degree cold, wearing only a shirt and worn coat. He reached the Bolshoi Ului Hospital, where paramedic Anastasia Melnikova was photographed beside him. At 32, Vladimir Hafkina created a cholera vaccine, tested it on himself, and helped control outbreaks in India. 5 years later, he repeated the feat with the world's first effective plague vaccine. A Russian soldier kisses his girlfriend beside an armored vehicle during Moscow's October crisis in 1993. The conflict ended with tanks shelling parliament after a deadly political standoff. 2 Soviet border guards patrolled the new frontier with Germany in 1940. This border appeared after Germany, and the Soviet Union divided Poland in 1939. The battleship Oriole survived up to 140 shell hits at Tsushima in 1905. Japan rebuilt her and returned her to war as Iwami. Survivors warmed themselves beside the ruins after the Spitak earthquake struck Armenia in 1988. The disaster killed about 25,000 people and left hundreds of thousands homeless. German troops released chlorine gas from thousands of cylinders on the Eastern Front. The wind carried the deadly cloud into Russian trenches, where simple cloth masks offered almost no protection. Russian soldiers rest inside a ruined building during the Battle of Grozny in January 1995. Their makeshift shelter shows the brutal conditions of one of the war's deadliest urban battles. A pilot crashes into the Atlantic after a failed takeoff from USS Block Island on August 12, 1953. A rescue helicopter reaches him as his aircraft disappears beneath the waves. The cook of the Endurance skins a penguin during the Imperial Transantarctic Expedition in 1915. Penguin meat helped keep the stranded crew and their dogs alive. On May 1, 1960, the Soviet Union shot down Francis Gary Powers in a secret American spy plane near Sverdlovsk. This prison photograph was taken months before his conviction for espionage. Opposition protesters hurl stones at riot police during Moscow's May Day clashes in 1993. The banned march erupted into street fighting, leaving hundreds injured and 1 officer dead. During the First World War, soldiers made fake heads to draw enemy sniper fire. The bullet holes helped reveal the sniper's exact position. London police officers rest among the ruins after a German air raid during the Second World War. The Blitz killed more than 40,000 British civilians and forced rescuers to work through fires, rubble, and unexploded bombs. Operation Bagration began on June 23, 1944, and destroyed Germany's Army Group Center. Soviet forces liberated Belarus and advanced up to 600 kilometers in just 2 months. An armed Bosnian woman stands on a Sarajevo street during the siege, sometime between 1992 and 1996. Italian photojournalist Enrico Dagnino captured the striking contrast between her colorful shirt and rifle. In 1943, 2 Soviet soldiers were photographed charging through smoke under enemy fire. The soldier in front carries giant wire cutters to break through barbed wire defenses. On May 18, 1980, Mount St. Helens erupted behind a local baseball game in Washington. The blast killed 57 people and removed nearly 400 meters from the mountain. On February 20, 1947, a chemical explosion destroyed the O'Connor Plating Works in Los Angeles, killing 17 people. The blast injured about 150 others and left a crater 22 feet wide. HMS Vidal climbs a towering wave during a violent storm in 1955. Months later, this Royal Navy survey ship carried the team that claimed the remote island of Rockall for Britain. This is the southern edge of Kowloon-walled city in 1975, a Chinese enclave inside British Hong Kong. Its disputed legal status helped turn it into one of the most densely populated places on Earth. In 1901, Annie Edson Taylor became the first person to survive Niagara Falls in a barrel. This photo shows rescuers opening it after she emerged alive with only a cut on her head. On December 15, 1967, the Silver Bridge collapsed during rush hour, killing 46 people. Investigators blamed one cracked eye bar, while locals linked the disaster to Eerie Mothman sightings reported before the collapse. After a failed coup in October 1965, Indonesia's army launched a CIA-backed anti-communist purge. Within months, soldiers and militias killed at least 500,000 people and helped create a brutal right-wing dictatorship. A French Potez 63.11 reconnaissance plane burns near Louvain after being shot down on May 14, 1940. Soldiers approach the wreck as ammunition and fuel continue to explode. Write in the comments, which photo did you like the most and why?